rolling. Those windshield wipers snapping at the tempo, playing perfect rhythm with the song on the radio. I gotta keep it rolling.
Welcome to the Rideshare Rodeo Podcast, weekly podcast of all things gig. And this week we got some good topics, and I got a great guest, Gary Middleton. Most of you guys know him. Middleton Technologies. We're going to go through his apps a little bit, but also Gary'sApps.com. He has a filtering tool to keep you safe while doing work on most of the platforms, especially the big ones. But we'll get to talking about that here in a little bit. Gary, how are you?
Good. It's, I just realized it was today, Sunday, right?
That we're recording, yeah.
So this is
now when
Sunday
people
Sunday.
see this, they'll be like, "You guys did this on Sunday?" Like,
clip that part out.
I don't edit. It's cool. That's how I do this now, because even for a while I was trying to record the audio podcast on Mondays,
right?
And I was doing it even live, and then people were like saying to me, "But you're not responding to me," and I realized, yeah, but that's what I do on this. And I was like, well, then you're right, though. I shouldn't be doing it live.
Right. You should be maybe premiere it or put it out.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's gonna premiere on Tuesdays, a few hours after the audio podcast drops. So I'm gonna use this chance to plug that, guys. You can find the audio podcast on any player in the world. So Spotify, Amazon, and any other place that you listen to podcasts, it's on it. So Rideshare Rodeo, and you can every Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific is the drop time for each week's podcast. And so it will premiere on YouTube a few hours after, because I think that the audio podcast listeners have been there a long time, and they for a while, they weren't only not getting the even shot. I was doing some lives and premiere or the originals on Mondays. So the people on YouTube were getting what has always been meant for the audio podcast listeners. But again, for the YouTube people watching, I do want to say that, please do comment still and whatnot. And I'll try and be in the premiere and treat it like that. That gives me more time to engage with you guys. But, this is just a better way for us to have a conversation. Cause I love the other nights looking over at chat, but for this one, it's a lot easier for me just to get through some topics.
The chat sometimes can be distracting. Because not everybody that tunes in at the exact same moment. So you get people asking questions out of order. Yeah. And so, like you might be.
Yeah, I could look over 20 minutes in and be like, I'm going to try and catch up with chat, and it means nothing. It's like reading gibberish, because I'm like, there's some.
Yeah, you're already 20 minutes past what they're asking. And so you'd have to keep going back every time.
Yeah. But I've always kind of relied on the chat to run itself anyway, but I do like engaging with it. So, so we're gonna talk about a couple things here. So obviously, on the last podcast, because there's actually 2 a week. There's the Rideshare Rodeo original OG podcast, which is this one, and then every Friday morning, the audio podcast drops, which is the roundtable from the night before. And on last roundtable, which was the last audio podcast, we got into this, not just in Colorado, but a discussion about why it was based around Colorado, but I think that Gary and I can take it a little farther, like why transparency is important, obviously to the rider. That's a no-brainer. But why, at least I even think, it's very important to the customer. And yes, businesses don't have to do this, but I feel like all these gig apps have got away with bloody murder for years by riding the coattails of independent contractorship and never getting that hybrid status where it was like they could tweak it a little more to fit what this is. Because there's things like changing a trip en route after you pick up a flat rate. Well, then that should be between the driver and the passenger only, the difference in the rate, because they're wanting to change it.
I've always thought that they should have an option for drivers to put no extra stops on their apps. So that way, if the passenger even tries to change it, it'd be like, oh, this ride is not eligible for changes.
Right.
It's a simple thing to put in.
Or show an upcharge for any of that crap you do after the fact, and make it big, since they didn't just teach them to put it in the beginning.
And let me correct this, because I know you said rider and customer. What he meant was driver and passenger.
Driver and passenger and customer, actually.
Well, the customer is the passenger.
But I mean, for Uber Eats.
Oh, well, I mean, then that would be who you're delivering to. But
Yeah. I mean, I'm just mentioning it because it's also DoorDash. It's others.
Right.
It should be every app. Every app should be. Gary and I should be able to look at it and go, that's transparent. Now, there might be something where somebody goes, well, this one little piece isn't. But like Gary and I, between us, if we both agree on something, I would call it transparent.
I would too.
There might be a little couple things where it's not exactly.
You can always nitpick every second.
Yeah, but if you're getting the main stuff that you need, and as a worker, you need to. I mean, we've been around this a million times. How do you make a decision on something that's just iffy?
You know, I was thinking about this law too that just passed in Colorado. Do you know the one service out of food delivery and rideshare and all that didn't have to change very much?
Grubhub.
Yeah. My favorite app.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't know why. They actually don't seem, I know they are, but they don't seem to be held to the standards of like Lyft, Uber.
I don't think that Grubhub does as much shady stuff as the rest.
Right. So they feel bad for them. They're like, you guys are actually trying to be honest people over there.
Well, I mean, because like, here's the thing. Whenever you see a Grubhub offer, you know that's what you're getting paid, period, point blank.
Yep.
Then everybody complained for the longest time, oh, Grubhub doesn't have miles in it, so I don't know how far I'm going. Grubhub said, okay, let me fix that for you. Here's your distance. So now you got your pay, you got your distance, you know where you're picking up from. I don't know if you know where you're dropping off at because I don't pay attention to that all the time. I know it shows on the map. I don't think that they show the actual address. But for the most part, I would say 95% of the transparency is there for the Grubhub already. You know where you're picking up from. You know how much you're getting paid. You can't be tip baited. You know,
but doesn't that even go back to even their origins, even pre-pandemic?
Yeah, they've always been that way. I mean, the only thing they didn't have pre-pandemic was the distance for the trip.
Until people asked.
Until the people asked,
like,
and people complained about it, and they was like, okay, here you go.
Right. Yeah. So
as far as I can remember.
I mean, and also I do know this, at least for my market, Denver market. I can't speak for all of them, but here, Ron Walter, Entree Courier, lives here in Denver. I haven't had him on the podcast in quite some time, but he was doing a ton of Grubhub pre-pandemic, and he basically said here in Denver for food delivery that Grubhub owned the market pre-pandemic. Like Uber Eats and DoorDash were this other thing.
Well, you know, Grubhub was the first. I don't know if they was the first one to deliver food, but they was the first platform to do anything with restaurants, because they were a menu service before the actual food delivery and all that. And I'm not sure if they came first or Uber Eats, or if Uber Eats and then them, but I know they were around before Uber as a menu service.
I think Grubhub was around before anybody.
Yeah, they were around as a menu service first. You go to their website, you see their menu, things like that.
Yeah, I was even thinking the offers, though.
Yeah, I don't know about the offers because I didn't do food delivery back in 2010.
Right. But again, the main point there being they're transparent. They have been since they started.
Yeah, or at least tried to be. I mean,
look at if every app was doing this good of a job, we probably wouldn't need to have this conversation.
And we'd find other things
that we're about to have. You know what I mean? Because a lot of it bases on the fact of all these years of just game playing and like spending so much. I've been mentioning it lately. I mean, the amount of if you just went to transparent at this point in everywhere, you're not going to lose any customers. None. They're not going to look at the bill and go, you know what? I'm not using the service anymore. There is nobody who does that.
Here's how I figure it too. Okay, you're not going to lose any drivers because we still see drivers out here doing $1, $2 deliveries. So you're definitely not going to lose any drivers if you're transparent. Yeah, you might have some that cherry pick more than others. Whatever. They're independent contractors. Let them do that. If they want to sit there for 4 hours waiting for a $100 order, whatever. That's their business. customers, we know that they're going to order because they currently order. You go to any of these platform websites, you put in your order, screenshot that order, and then drive down there and order the exact same thing, and it is double the cost on the platform than is if you went and got it yourself.
Yeah.
Minimum.
Yeah. With all the fees and everything.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And that's before, like whenever I do anything on Uber Eats, like I'll use Uber Eats every now and then, but I'll put in my order, and then it at the bottom there has a continue button, and then after like they show you, hey, this is what your order is, and then you hit continue, you're like, oh crap, now I still got to tip the driver too.
Yeah.
So it's just like, and you're gonna order because you don't want to get out.
So before we go into this piece about Gary and I are going to break down the league. We're going to save you guys the headache of having what I did and read it 3 times, because anything written in legal is like it gives you a headache. So you have to stop every once in a while.
And we know you guys don't read terms of services, so you're not going to read this either.
Right. But so I made a pretty good bullet point. It'll walk us through it in non-legal terminology, and we'll kind of discuss it. But I want to ask you, because I know you heard the conversation, and I'm glad. I love it when people have different points of view. None of us really know the answer of what'll happen with this, but I feel like I have good instincts, and I've felt good about this. The fact there's no dollar amount on it, there's no, you'll get health benefits. Well, I can save more money in the marketplace getting health insurance in December than getting your stupid plan, and it just it's just wrapped in Uber wrapping paper, but it's Obamacare. It's like, so I mean, like, you're not getting a deal like those. Everything's just fake, and I feel like you're going to get screwed when there's money involved.
That's how I feel. I feel the more perks that they're putting in for you to say, oh wow, I need this, they're screwing you on something major.
Big time. And maybe I've gone to the conspiracy side of, because we keep hearing about, and we know personally, car insurance has been going up dramatically.
Tell me about it.
But I mean, like, Uber's been stating, and normally I won't side with them at all, but I'll say that they've been stating that even, our costs have been, I'm sure they have, but that's your problem. Like, the way you chose this model, that's your problem.
Right.
Like, you have to, because you keep saying you're tech, or you're just a simple switchboard, or, you're kind of in this weird spot. You don't want to come out and say you're just a middleman.
Right.
And so to avoid that, you're spending all these, they
can't even call themselves a middleman, though. They can't even say they're a middleman, because the middleman, all it does is pass through stuff and collect a little bit of fee. No, they determine the price. They determine everything. And then they send it on. So they're not even a middleman. They can't even claim that.
The only reason maybe middleman's not the right term. The only reason I would even say middleman is because we can't go. The only reason I would even say it is because we can't go get those customers.
Well, we could ourselves. Yes. We could.
Yeah, but I mean the amount they throw us per day, and
right.
Like,
well, I mean, let's bring it. They're not a pass-through service. They're not a service as a software. They're not a middleman. I mean,
but these are all things they've claimed to be.
Right. They're not, though. I mean, we always joke that they're not a tech company, but in reality, they do make technology.
They?
Well, somewhat. I mean, we use it every day.
One-man show over Gary's abs.
I do.
More technology than the whole damn Uber program. I'm not saying they don't know how to program, but they're like being taught to, like, okay, screw everybody over, or you're fired. Like,
pretty much. I think that's in their orientation speech.
Coding almost. It's like, how can I get a bonus by I found a line of code where we can screw the drivers even more. I'm gonna get a bonus.
It's kind of like that one movie where they took a penny or a fraction of a penny from every transaction.
Oh, yeah,
and ended up getting like millions and millions.
Yeah, that was Office Space.
Yeah, Office Space. Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I actually have to pause and remember that, because I remember it was even Jennifer Aniston in that scene, and and he's in a 7-Eleven, and he's looking at the penny tray,
Right.
and he's like, it's like the penny tray. He's like, people throw in when they need one or have one, and they take it when they need it. And then he was like, I'm not explaining it right. It's like giving a. And she got all weirded out. I was like, wait, you're gonna take from the poor kids or something? I'm not so sure.
But that's how I feel. That's how I feel Uber is. They're like, oh, we can just take a penny here, 3 pennies there, and it'll add up. That's what.
Oh my God! I didn't even think of that. Can you imagine if on top of all the shenanigans and BS they pull on us, they're also doing that penny scam right from the movie?
Oh, I bet you they are. I bet you they are.
I mean, because guys, when we've talked about those numbers, I don't even remember what they are. It's been a while since I've looked. Like how many rides globally per day?
Oh, well,
it's high. It's
yeah,
real high. Yeah, I know. I think it's like 8-9 million a day, though. I think it's something ridiculous. So I mean, like if you think about that, but I mean, so here we are, Gary. You heard the conversation. I think I don't even know if we need to go into it. Drivers need the transparency. On this side, drivers just need it, dude.
Depending on how you look at it, that's how I say. Because, like, okay, on your round table last week, you had people that said the riders or customers did not need to know what the driver makes, right?
Okay, right. But I'm just talking about the driver first.
Right, I'm getting there.
Okay.
So you got to separate that. You got to separate transparency when people are looking at it this way. Because if you're talking about total transparency, as in how much did the customer pay, how much did Uber take out, how much is their insurance, blah, blah, until trickle down effect to this is how much I get paid. Well, I mean, that can be debated. Now, are you talking about transparency as what's shown on the offer screen is what you're getting paid?
Well, the other thing that I was reading in here that we'll get to in this next segment that I was saying we're going to go through this law. Part of it is that one thing that came out to me that I wasn't even thinking of. I mean, I knew about federal and state funded rides, and so I mean, like, or subsidies. But here's something interesting: is that it said in there that Uber will now be mailing drivers a monthly statement of how many hours, miles, everything you did. Now, I was telling people whenever I did a little piece on it, I was telling people, listen, be careful. If you're using a mileage tracker now, continue using it because you better be careful now, because now you have documented proof that you're going to use in your taxes.
Well, see, that's one thing I don't agree with. I don't think that Uber should have to do that. Like you're
to the drivers?
Yeah, you're an independent contractor. I don't think that they should have to tell you how many miles you drove.
No. But they're reporting it to the IRS.
Well, I understand that.
So I guess my point is, I'm just warning drivers a little bit.
But yeah, I would definitely always
be careful. I'm
going
to be honest here. I know a lot of drivers who I've talked to who are just at the end of a year throwing a dart and making up the miles, literally.
Oh, I know that too. I see it on Facebook groups all the time.
And I mean, I know some. I'm going to be, again, here it is, guys, and I'm not naming names, but there are people doing this, going in and playing with it in some software until it's the right amount of money so they don't have to pay or they're getting something back. So they literally...
You know why they do that, right? There's only a 2% chance that someone is going to get an audit. 2%.
Right, but okay, so here's the only thing I wanted to mention about that specific thing then was that, remember the guy in Oregon who got audited?
No.
You and I talked about this. It was a while ago.
We probably did, but
it was a rideshare driver who had done I don't know. He was doing Uber and Lyft, but it was like primarily Uber. 90% of his work for the year, made like $55,000. He got audited, and they wanted a receipt of every person he drove. And he said, go to Uber.
Yeah, you can't get it because I'm not.
And this was 2 years ago. You couldn't get nothing.
Right. That's even when Uber was saying, oh, they're your customers, not ours.
Exactly. And that's what they had said. So that led the auditor down the trail to this guy.
Right. Who
literally, as far as it's proof of the things I say about, don't just believe because it's on Uber's app, it's legal.
No, that's what I'm saying. Anything that they're going to track. Okay, it's great if they send it to you. You have another backup in case something goes wrong, but do not trust it because not only that, but you might be driving for Uber. You have your Uber app on. Now you're also driving for Lyft and Grubhub and DoorDash. So you got all these apps on. You go to do a DoorDash order and you don't turn off your other apps. Now all three of them are still tracking your mileage.
Yeah.
So, but they're tracking it completely different than each other because DoorDash is now tracking you on a delivery. The other ones aren't. And so it's, it's not going to come out correctly. So that's why you should always use a third-party service. Since you're an independent tractor or independent contractor, you should always independently track your income, your miles, your deductions, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't want to plug it, but you can do that with Gary'sApps.com.
Oh, plug it, dude. Because I mean, like, you know what? I have had people asking me lately, like, what app should I use? And like, I think it was Kim in one of our a couple of weeks ago on the round table was like, well, most people just start out with Stride, but then they move away with it. And I jokingly was like, then don't promo it. Like,
Stride is a very good app. It's a very good app. It's a very good mileage tracker.
And what she said was correct. Most people do start with Stride.
Yeah, most people start with it, but it doesn't track everything you need. And they're going to spam you with a whole bunch of healthcare stuff too. And so what you want is you want to get a tracker that you can track everything. You want to be able to track your mileage, your time on lines, your start and stop locations, any expenses you have. You want to be able to put that in there too, because the worst thing you want is to have 5 apps where you're tracking all kinds of different things. In fact, this year, 2025, Maxymo just got an update on it. And it actually
we should pause and roll this back a little. So first of all, Gary'sApps.com. I was gonna talk about this anyway, but let's just do it now. So Gary'sApps.com, it'll redirect you to Middleton Technologies. So don't think that something weird happened. It's just Gary'sApps.com is a much cooler name.
In fact, Steve told me to go get that .com. By the way,
we were doing a live, and I was like,
on Sunday.
I wonder if it won't be available. And there it was.
And eventually I'll probably roll Middleton Tech into just the Gary'sApps.com.
But people don't use Middleton too. I just want any new people to not be confused. You're going to be redirected to a site, Middleton Technologies. That is Gary, and that these are going to be his apps. You're going to see Maxymo. You're going to see driver utility
helper.
You're going to see
FlexAlert. You're going to see Gig Wars.
Yak. I'm still trying to put into because I want it. Yak's I'm all about Yak. And so I guess quickly, tell us which apps do what.
Okay. So Maxymo is for your on-demand apps. It's an automation / mileage tracker / expense tracker, and gives you a tax breakdown, things like that. That's what I was just talking about there. This year, 2025, I actually went into Maxymo and I added in a tax section to it. So it'll show you what you've earned through the year. It is a manual tracker, so you do have to help it somewhat put in some of your earnings. But then it will also give you your miles driven. It'll give you your tax deduction for those miles. If you enter expenses, it can help you track all your expenses.
But Gary's leaving out the most important part. He just left out every feature.
I'm getting to that. No, I'm giving you the bonus feature first. And then, like I said earlier, I was talking about, you forget to turn off your other apps. Well, Maxymo can do that for you when you accept a trip. Or if you set up filters and it automatically accepts the trip for you, it will turn off all those other apps for you. And then once you complete the trip, it'll turn them all back on. It has features like auto accept, auto decline. It has a data overlay.
Right. If I'm multi-apping Lyft, Uber Eats, and I have them all on, what Gary's saying is I'll see my offers come in like we all do. I pick the one, but I don't have to play with anything else. Everything else goes on pause. I deal with the one order I'm doing, and I can set filters of I don't want to see less than $1 a mile. I don't want to see less than $2 a mile. It depends where you live and what you need to make. But you can set those filters. I mean, does it still affect your acceptance rate? Yes. But you don't have to look at it and think about it.
Yeah, in fact, that's what a user told me just the other day. He goes, I can't do gig work without Maxymo because he's been using it for, 5 years now. So he goes, I'm so programmed that whenever the order comes in, I get the little, I call it a data overlay or whatever. It'll take all your stuff from Uber that, is important, like the mileage, Uber gives you a pickup distance and a drop-off distance, while Maxymo combines those and gives you a total distance. It then takes the amount and gives you a per mile amount, per hour amount, per minute amount, things like that. So he's so programmed that he just looks over and looks at it. If it's green, he knows to accept it. If it's red, he knows not to accept it.
Right.
I mean, he goes, I'm that programmed now to use a Maxymo. I've been using this long. I got my filter set up. He goes, I don't even have to think. It's just like an automatic thing now. You know, and you know, of course, driver's utility helper is kind of like a mimic of Maxymo, except for it's only for DoorDash because you have to do scheduling through it. You can't just go on and offline.
By the way, I've told Gary he needs to just put DUH into Maxymo. He just doesn't want that nightmare of programming again. But honestly, like Maximo's the stronger name.
Maybe
anyway.
Maybe one day. I
mean, Maximo's like his baby. This is the, you know, I know he likes the name. The name's strong, so I don't know.
Eventually, everything might go to Maxymo. I don't know. It takes a lot of time to take stuff from, and it's one thing when you got you know users that are using the app, and then you say, hey, you can't use this one. You got to go use this one. A lot of people don't like to move. You know, they don't want to have to go move over and all that stuff. It's a different setup and things like that. So I try not to mess with too many people.
Did I get that right on this?
Check out Gary'sApps.com for gig driver safety and optimizing best earnings in your market. You could have probably reworded it. You should use ChatGPT sometimes.
So how should I reword it? I want to do it right now.
I don't know. I'd have to put it in there. What do I have on Gary's app stuff?
What did you like? Because gig app safety, I know you're fine with. It was the
yes.
earnings.
Well, let me see. This is what I have.
I mean, it's more than
Maxymo helps rideshare and delivery drivers become safer drivers by auto switching between apps, auto accepting only the trips they want, auto declining unprofitable trips.
That's driver safety.
You drive for, the more trips you can get, which equals less downtime and more money.
So I'm going to actually leave it how it was because it actually was perfect.
That is not what I said.
I think Gary just told me, no, dude, actually, you're right. I just read about my app. Because I think I'm just trying to get you guys to go to Gary'sApps.com and see it because he's got Gig Wars up there too. If you guys have seen the Gig War stuff, like, I don't know what the involvement is, but he designed that for them.
Yeah, I'm the programmer for all Gig Wars. I'm partnered with Red.
Yeah.
She does the social media parts of things, and she's the face of it, and I'm the brains behind it. So,
she just say, "Don't take offense, Red."
No, she knows. Like she does. Like I don't have to deal with people. I got enough to deal with already with my other apps, so she gets to do all that. I'm still with customer service, so if you email, support@middletontech.com, you still get me. It's just I do all the gear work in the background, make sure the app works and adding features, and she does all the promo stuff and talks to people.
So shout out to Gig Wars. You guys check it out on YouTube. It's interesting, but
Gig Wars official.
Yep. And let's move into this so we have enough time to get through the rest of both of these. But guys, here's my advice: just go to Gary's apps, and even just the little blurbs on them that you'll read they're gonna if you're using the app, it's gonna draw you in, and you can see it. His prices are fair, and this I can say too because I've known Gary a long time. He gets back to everybody, and he's a one-man show, and I know how hard that can be because I am too. And I do the same thing. I get back to everybody, and it's hard. It takes up a lot of time.
It does.
And I'm sure on his end even more because he's got to be dealing with people going, "Why is the app broke?" or "Why did this thing happen?" And he's like, "I'm fixing it right now. Things happen." They happen to Uber and DoorDash and stuff too, guys. Guess what? But so let's go back to we're beyond the drivers. The drivers on some, we can all agree on some level. The drivers need to have the transparency also because of taxes, because the way that's always been handled is Uber's saying, you're the contractor, this is your client. And as I mentioned, the person in Oregon got fined majorly for not having the receipts for these.
Right.
So, and he kept saying, ask Uber, I don't have them. And they don't give them to me. And he still got fined all this money. So anyway, I think we all believe there needs to be a driver transparency of some level. But moving to the part of that conversation that seemed to get really pretty divided which I was kind of shocked on. I get it. I get why some people might say, well, companies don't have to divulge everything. No, they don't. But again, I'm going to talk about this should have been a hybrid. It's not. Okay. They have to go by independent contractor law now. They're breaking it on a daily basis. I think that just so much crap is happening. I do believe, and I believe in free market. I believe in small businesses and all this, but I do believe they have to be transparent.
See, that's what I was getting at earlier. I think depending on how people look at it, you either have to be fully transparent on both sides, driver and customer, or on the driver side, they don't. If you say the customer doesn't need to know what the driver got paid, then that means you don't need to know what the customer paid.
Right.
That's how I see it. And I know people keep trying to compare it. Well, you don't know how much did it cost to bring a carrot to a grocery store? Well, no, because that's a product versus a service.
Yeah. Or David Pickerel had mentioned, you don't need to know, like they were some weird, and some of them were good too, but like you don't need to know how much the margins are on a can of Pepsi. That to me didn't even apply.
Well, again, that's a product, not a service.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Okay, I just had a driveway done, right?
Yes.
On my driveway, they gave me a detailed listing of everything that happened. They didn't tell me how much each driver for the trucking company that brought the gravel in got paid. What they did is they put transportation and then a number. That's it. They didn't say driver A, Jeff made this, driver B, Mike made this. No, they said transportation, and then they gave me that number. But everything was itemized: gravel cost, transportation cost, whatever else cost. It was all itemized on my bill. That was a service that I was getting.
Yep.
It wasn't a product. I wasn't buying a Coke or a Pepsi or a carrot or any of those things. So you can't compare those two like that. Same thing with a taxi. You go get in a cab, guess what? You know exactly what you're paying as the customer. This is what you're paying the driver. Yep. How's that any different?
Yeah. Well, so I guess I'll even go to your example though. So I will stand by this. I mean, there might be some cases where it's not the case, but for the most part, I honestly believe that, okay, a general contractor doesn't need to give Gary that breakdown, but the ones who bid him and say, I'll do it for this, and aren't going to do that, either are going to be, they might be less expensive, but I'm guessing you're getting shoddier work too. I'm not trying to across the board be mean, but I think the people who are going to break it down are the ones you want to trust.
Right. And well, that's the thing. They can be like, oh, well, it's going to cost, let's say $2,000.
Right.
They might be taking 1,800 of that, and then paying out 200 of that. Well, I mean, that does matter to me, because why would I overpay this guy?
Right.
If he's not doing, if everybody else is doing the work and he's just getting $1,800 out of it, right.
And also if Gary said, I need this, and this done in my house, like these things that involve a gravel truck, a plumber, an HVAC tech, all these different things, and the GC is just like, I've got it. It's, that's one thing, but like if he's now, like, let's say a year later, something goes wrong with the plumbing and the GC can't be found, he doesn't have a breakdown on the plumbing part if the person wasn't.
Yeah, or if he goes out of business or something.
Right, but if you have that breakdown, you can now show the person that you can't contact that GC, get a new one, and you can show them, look, here's the breakdown of everything. Here's the plumbing stuff that was done or supposed to have been done.
Yeah, I think if it's a service, it definitely needs transparency to it. You need to know where your money's going as a customer. If it's a product, no, you're buying a product. It doesn't matter what everybody else is getting behind that product, because you're buying that specific product. And rideshare food delivery is not a product. It's a service.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's, I guess, like, who was it also? Chris. And we're not picking on anybody here. I mean, I love difference of opinion, and we're all trying to figure this out. But I mean, like Chris had said, like, well, name me another business. And again, Yuri just named a few spaces kind of thing. But he's like, name me a business that has to show you how much it's paying everybody. But one of the things he said too was, you know, you don't go to Walmart and it says $13.50 an hour. And I was thinking, well, I also am not an employee of Walmart or any of the gig apps.
You're an independent contractor.
I mean, to me, that was kind of the point. I'm like, yeah, of course not, because that's none of my business. That's a W-2 employee.
Now, here's the thing. Like, I love difference of opinion. Everybody can find some way to spin it to make their argument better or geared towards what they want. In the end, I don't think it really matters if the customer knows how much the driver makes or the driver knows how much the customer makes, because customers, they're not going to tip based off of that. I don't believe they will, because if they're going to tip, they're going to tip. If they're not, they're not. I've never seen someone go, oh, you know, I took a limo. I know this limo driver's making, you know, $2.50 an hour. I'm going to not tip him. No, they already decided that they wasn't going to tip him before they even ordered the limo.
100%.
So, you know, and if they did tip him, they're just naturally good tippers.
Yep.
Yeah, that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. And it's one of those questions where it's like, there's lots of ways to put out questions where you can confuse anybody.
Yeah.
Like you can get somebody like me who's sure about what I know going, wait, what? You've hurt my head for a minute. I need to think this through.
I think if you're going to compare, you should compare things equally. Don't compare a product to a service to an employee, independent contractor versus employee. You can't compare all those. You got to compare exactly business to business. You know, you're a business to a business. You know, if you were selling something directly to a customer as a service, you wouldn't be like, oh, here you go, I need $300. And then they'd be like, why? You'd be like, oh, it doesn't matter. I just need $300. No, you would tell them or give them a breakdown of why you're charging them $300.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, especially because of, I mean, I think it's even important because there's a few reasons. I mean, like, look, there's tons, but we have federal and state subsidy on rides. And those subsidies, I've had people give me the weirdest definitions of, well, doesn't that just mean that they're funding state people rides? I'm like, no, that means they're funding people in areas where drivers don't pick up and stuff. So like my tax dollars, even though it only might be $5 or $6 in Colorado a year, let's say 5 or 6 of mine goes to this, it's still, that adds, first of all, that adds up. Second of all, even $5 or $6, I have the right to know, or at least be proven to, did that money go to subsidize rides? Which goes back to the transparency again, because I mean, like, if they're taking us all our tax dollars for subsidizing rides, are they showing where the subsidized rides are? Because these receipts now are going to be just that. Like, show me the receipts. Okay, here they are. You know, like there's going to be no goofball. You can't include service fee and taxes anymore into one. I think that's great.
I think that's great too, because like whenever I order, I'm in Florida, if people don't know. Whenever I order on these apps, it's all into one. And so it's like you got $9, you go $9. Yeah. And then you got to click another menu to get to the actual service fees and everything like that.
But even then it's dynamic. So it's like, well, it's Thursday at 10:02, and at 10:02 we run a special for you where we double your processing fee. That's how stupid it is. I mean, I don't know how their algorithm works. I'm just trying to put it in like some terms where people can go, it can't be that dumb. It is.
And remember, I typed in your chat on Thursday, you know, it's adding transparency isn't something that these companies have to go out the way to do. They don't. They already have all this data. Yeah. All they got to do is, instead of sending 5 lines of data back to you, they got to send out 8 lines of code back. It's not like they're going out of their way. And that's why I said, you said it took them like 1,500 hours or something.
That's what's in this document that we're about to get to, dude. And here's what they said. We already have the code ready to launch and be in compliance because they said they spent 1,500 programming hours.
You know what those programming hours were for? Is to seclude it from everybody else and only show Colorado drivers. That's what that was for.
But even I mean, you're a coder, but I don't even think that many hours would have needed to go into
I
just
I
be
don't
like,
think
if
so
it's a
either.
Colorado ride, send it
Yeah.
the hell over here.
Yeah, they have it labeled by districts or sectors or zones, or they could just do it by states too. And then
Regardless,
do an if
the
statement.
point was, I don't even know if that was to like show like, look how much we've done.
Yeah.
When really it's probably like 5 hours.
Yeah, 1,500. I think that's exaggeration. Just for showing stuff that you've already got. I mean, because like I'm not in Colorado, so I haven't actually seen the transparency screens.
Yep.
And so I don't know. Did they have to go through and redesign the whole apps for these screens?
That's the part you would know better than me.
Yeah.
We're going to get to what it actually is. Actually, we're going to move into that now. But I mean, the other thing I wanted to mention is I do want to bring this up. If for the people who don't follow all the news, I've been following a lot of news around all these, like, they're not out of the woods. These state legislations, these RICO cases, they're still happening. But there's a big push right now to Uber from its investors. And this is all due to autonomous. It's 100% due to autonomous. Gary and I have known each other years. Every year it's next year.
Five years now. 5 years now.
Right. Well, Dara said 10. He said in 10 drivers.
I thought he said 5.
Oh, he said 10. But nonetheless, here's the point. We saw companies just in the last couple of years, like big ones, like Ford, take their level 5 autonomous back down to level 3. They understand, dude. No, let's go back to making sure that it can self-park, that it can do the feature, if you're going off the road, whatever it's called, where it brings you back.
I just want them. Okay, I got autonomous driving in my car. I got a Kia.
Yeah.
And my wife has one in her Toyota. And I just want to make it to where I don't have to have my hand on the steering wheel the whole time, because if I'm just driving at this point. Steve has a RAV4. He doesn't have all these neat
But
features.
then you'd fall asleep or something. Not you, but somebody would.
It needs to be like it on my wife's car. It's terrible. It's like every 10 seconds. Like if you take your hand off the wheel and rub your eye or something, it's beeping at you.
Yeah.
And it's
remember
like,
when Tesla used to be able to take two half oranges and just shove it into the corners of the wheel, and it would drive itself, and people were they were putting like bowling balls, because that was all it was doing was the weight of the seat, and they were sleeping in the back.
Like, what's the average on that? Come on, like normal people ain't doing that stuff.
If it's available, people will do it.
I'm not saying somebody's not going to do it because they're not stupid, but somebody's going to do stupid things. Doesn't mean the rest of us got to pay for it. You can give me 2 minutes without me touching a wheel.
But okay, here was my point on this anyway, though. The investors are actually, there's groups forming. There's 3 different groups, and they're not the biggest percentage yet, but they're actually, Uber's trying to squash their groups, because they're saying, listen, every year you've said autonomous is the next year. Now Dara's saying 10 years. And now they're seeing, okay, so we're never going to make a profit on what we actually were investing in, which was the future of autonomous driverless vehicles. They're seeing that now. We're not going to make that money in the next 10 years.
Right.
Probably more, let's be honest. But because we're infrastructure, everything, but we're not going to see it in the next 10 years. And so what they're demanding is, we want to now see how many drivers are active on this app, how many are part-time and full-time, and how many of the full-time ones, I keep seeing these are great articles, how many of the full-time ones are making a living wage. And the reason they're doing that should be pretty clear to everybody. They want to know, do these drivers, because the churn rate is slowed a little bit. A lot of people say it's increased, or it's out through the roof. It's not. It's slowed. And so, not as many onboarding.
Right.
There's still a ton, and it's still oversaturated, but they're seeing at some point this will catch up, and there won't be enough new drivers. Right. And this autonomous that we thought was going to be here next year isn't. So then what? Because if we can't make anything but maybe a nickel profit as a multi-billion-dollar company worldwide every quarter, then what am I doing here?
Right.
And the only time, look, somebody said to me, dude, people make money trading Uber all the time. I said, day traders.
Yeah, day traders.
Hedge funds, of course.
Okay, let's get it right. Investors are making money. They just clearly are.
Yeah.
CEOs are making money. High-end people in Uber are making money. Day traders are making money. Anyone that's, let's say halfway down through the company's hierarchy and down, they're not making any more money.
No.
They're getting their salary,
And
drivers
even
are getting
their job security is pretty low these days, even worse than ever. Like if you are a big up at Uber, don't think you have that title.
Oh no, they're always going to try and
they'll
replace
end you for no reason.
They'll always try and find someone that can do your job for cheaper.
But okay, we've addressed all that. We talked about Gary's apps. You guys need to check that out. We're going to now talk about what happened. So in a nutshell, real quick, in June of 2024, two bills were put on the table. One was for delivery network companies. One was for transportation network companies. The delivery one was in the House of Representatives in Colorado, and the transportation one was in the Senate. We saw Stephanie Vigil the year before put a bill together that had both, kind of asking the same thing, and they found all kinds of the people, what do you call them, the lobbyists for Uber and all these companies got together and found ways to tear this thing apart. So what they did was split the bill into two, and they both got ratified and passed in June of 2024 to take effect. It was two parts to take effect January 1st of this year, 2025, and then February 1st was the final parts where the rider and the passenger or the customer had to be involved in the transparency too. And these were complete transparency laws. We don't need extra money. We don't need fake active time, minimum wages. We just need the drivers and everybody to see transparency like we've been talking about. All the companies knew this bill had passed in the Senate and in the House, both became law. And then in the 11th hour, Uber does what it does, and it filed filed an injunction against, because Uber is suing the state of Colorado, but it wanted an injunction to not have to participate in this law until they get their day in court, kind of thing. So it was kind of looking a little weird for a minute. Like we were all looking at it, watching the articles, and it was like, wait a minute, is this going to be just another, all of a sudden it's going to get ended right here, and this judge is going to say, you know what, grant him the injunction, whatever, and then we just all know that road, we all get disappointed. But it didn't, and the judge said he'd come back next week and tell us. He put it out Friday, and I'm gonna summarize this like I told you earlier in human talk, not legal talk. So the background of the case I told you guys about, the TNC Act, it's SB 24-075, effective February 1st, 2025, requires transportation network companies like Uber. It's funny that they say like Uber and Lyft, or don't. They just put like Uber.
They don't even mention Lyft.
Well, I mean, I guess I was thinking about it. I mean, I guess it is Uber's lawsuit that they're referring to. To make new disclosures to drivers and riders, Uber filed a lawsuit challenging the act, specifically its disclosure requirements, and sought a preliminary injunction. Now, this was 2 weeks ago only. So in the 11th hour again, and this will come into play, because everybody, when that happened, was saying, oh, same old Uber playbook. This is what they do. And yeah, it's legal to do this, but the judges might say something different. Like, we'll see. So Uber claims the disclosures would compel it to speak in ways that contradict its advocacy efforts and could mislead drivers and riders. What do you take from that sentence? could mislead riders.
I mean,
I know their argument, but I'm like thinking from my point, I'm like,
I mean, you're just going to show a breakdown of who's getting paid what,
right? It's saying it contradicts our way of doing business, and it could mislead riders. How? By being honest?
Right. Well, that's what I'm getting at. It's just going to show them that, because a lot of riders now think that drivers make majority of the money, and that's just not true.
No.
Now I will say not every driver is getting less than 50% or less than 70% of the total ride. Not every rider or driver does get that. Some of them
but
do,
not every
but-
driver even gets the same on every ride.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So that's all. To me, I don't think it's going to hurt them because people are still going to take Uber. They're just going to be like, well,
yeah,
Uber sucks. That's
right. And honestly, here's my thing before we move on this. Honestly, if I'm Uber, I would actually finally just take advantage of this because all the nightmares would go away, and I would just line item everything. That's what they're telling you to do anyway. Show how much insurance is. Show how much
Here's the thing: if they did like a let's say like an Aldi's receipt style, nobody's going to read that receipt this long. They're just not.
Right.
And that's what I would do if I was Uber. Like, oh, you want everything? Okay, here's everything.
Yeah.
And then you know what the rider's gonna do? Just put the total at the top. That's what you need to do, and then put the line items underneath it. They're gonna stop right there at the top.
Right. Well, and that's part of, to address to those of you a little familiar with this, what's been going on in that lawsuit. They claimed First Amendment rights. One of the biggest ones was font size. But what it really comes out to is at the end of a ride, and then we'll keep moving on here. But at the end of a ride, the rider will see one screenshot that will pop up, and it has to display the total payment, whatever breakdown Uber wants to put, and it has to put what the driver paid. It has to be on there, and it has to fit on one screen. So that's why they said font size, because they knew what Uber was going to do. They knew Uber was going to use half of it for their logo and then put the rest in that kind of like
little 8SP font.
Yeah, and then underneath it, thank you for riding. Like you literally would have just closed it going, what's this? So they're saying you need to show it. Just show it. But I think that it's funny that they're like, well, it might mislead people into what? Honesty? I mean, I don't know. That's their fight. But the disclosure requirements, driver-facing disclosures, Uber must disclose the total payment made by the rider before tips, the driver's payment before tips, and the amount of any tip after completing the ride. So up front, you have to know how many miles, where you're going, and you have to see the
this
total
is all
pay.
on the offer screen.
Right. This is the offer screen. You got to see that. And that's something that we're used to seeing maybe after you can look it up.
Right.
But you have to see what the customer paid and what you're going to make out of it. To me, that makes sense. Because a driver might say, dude, I'm down to do a airport run, but I'm not, if you're charging 130, I'm not doing it for 25.
Right.
All of a sudden this 25 makes it's going to, I'm just saying it's going to, what I think it's going to, we're all independent contractors. So these people need to learn to be independent contractors. Well, part of that would be to learn to see how much what's going on here. That's just my take. But so rider facing disclosures, Uber must disclose the amount the rider pays and the amount the driver receives before the tips are added, with a focus on clear visibility. And I think that's after the fact. We'll get to it. But like when the ride ends, that's the screen I was saying. But pre-ride information. Uber must disclose estimated mileage and time for the ride before the driver accepts the trip. Now, I'm very curious how this will proceed, because does that mean you can't change a location on an upfront price? Because I would love that. Or tell me you want to stop at 7-Eleven for 17 hours.
17 hours.
I mean, seriously. And then number 4, I'll just say reporting and IRS information. This is where I was telling you guys, this is important. Use Gary's apps. If you're already in a mileage app, just use it. Use one. Because here's my thing about where Gary said it wouldn't be that important to the driver, who will get them too. But I don't think that the driver needs to look at it, but I think that the driver needs to save it in a file every month. And at the end of the year, if you are being audited, knock wood, or even asked about something, and you notice, wait a minute, my app says I did 700 miles and Uber claimed I did 200. That's why I think it would come in handy to use these other apps. So,
I'll have to get yours, Steve, so I can compare it to see what actually happens with it.
Yeah. So the plaintiff's argument, I was thinking, and to be honest, I was thinking about asking Tony, the driven dad, to come out here and park like a block away, and I'll take a ride so that we
Right.
both see what we see, because they should match too.
Right.
They should match exactly. But plaintiff's argument, Uber argues that these disclosures, this is all from the 9-page document that stopped the injunction that would allow Uber to operate until they got their day in court. So Uber argues that these disclosures are misleading and compel them to speak a government message that infringes on their First Amendment rights. Uber also claims that the disclosures are inaccurate and duplicative, harming their public image and business interests. I mean, do you think that's true?
That is
I read that again.
No,
yeah,
I mean,
again, I read that as like, listen, I mean, if we have to show people what we're doing, they're not going to want to use us anymore because we're pretty sketchy.
Well, see, here's the thing. It's not just Uber, though. It's all of the services are going to have to do this. So, I mean, it's such a big service now. Like, people are going to have to use somebody.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter who they're going to use. All of them are going to have to show this. Lyft, DoorDash, Grubhub, everybody's going to comply with this.
So the state of Colorado's position, who again, state of Colorado, unlike all these other states that have these type legislations, is not suing Uber. Remember, guys, Uber is suing the state of Colorado. Right. So they're the defendant. And the state of Colorado's position is defendants argue that the disclosures will help drivers and riders make more informed choices, contributing to a more transparent and efficient marketplace. Defendants maintain that the disclosures are a form of commercial speech subject to a lower level scrutiny, and then they cite a case. So they have a case to cite. And so to me, that kind of, I guess what I'm saying there is it's everything we've said of like, do they deserve to do it though? They were able to cite a case and have a judge say, yeah, I agree. Like, you know, so at least for now, but then we get into the preliminary injunction standard, like the criteria. So criteria for them to have said to Uber, okay, we'll give you the injunction. They needed these to happen. They needed the likelihood of success on the merits of the lawsuit. Now, I've read the 51-page lawsuit from Uber. If I'm the judge, I can easily see why he's like, no, you're not going to succeed. And 2, risk of irreparable harm to the plaintiff. Well, as he mentions in the long document and stuff, he thinks they're harming themselves. So he kind of put it back on them as, well, I think you guys are doing the harm. But the injunction is not, and the injunction is not adverse to the public interest. And again, these are what have to be met. I don't think any of those are met. So, you know, what does he do? And the plaintiff's burden, Uber must demonstrate that it is substantially likely to succeed on the merits of the case to obtain so they're saying that they need this injunction because this case is BS and we just shouldn't have, we're going to prove it when we get our day in court, but until then, don't make us follow it. That's what they're saying. Right. That's their push. And then the court's decision, you know, pre-enforcement issues. Federal court generally cannot issue a pre-enforcement injunction, and there's no constitutional right for review. The state has private enforcement mechanisms, meaning individuals can sue Uber in state court, reducing the need for federal court intervention. Equitable considerations. The urgency of Uber's request is largely self-inflicted, given that it waited until, this is great, just before the law effective date to file the lawsuit. So they're saying exactly what we always get mad about. You guys knew this in June of last year, and you waited until 2 weeks before the effective date. And again, it is their right. We talked about this on the roundtable. It is their right. But it's also really nice to see this judge say, yeah, it's your right. And it's my right to say that I'm sick of this crap. So that's cool. Where are we? Likelihood of success. Uber did not meet the burden, so they did not get it. The remedy issues. Even if a preliminary injunction were granted, the state law would go into effect and Uber would face risks of lawsuit in state court, making the injunction more of an advisory opinion than an effective remedy. And to that, I don't know about you, Gary, but I would say, listen, that's Uber saying what they've done to Spain and what we've joked about before. Spain's like, get out. And they're like, okay. And they just come back with a bigger suitcase of money.
Right.
Or in this case, they would just be like, sure, we're not going to leave though. And they just keep operating. It's so weird. They're lawless.
Well, and I think that's what that statement says. It wouldn't stop anybody from suing them for it.
Right.
You know, even if they said, okay, even if the court said, okay, you don't have to follow this law, they could still be sued for it.
Right. And so the denial of injunction based on a lack of a clear and unequivocal right to relief, the court denied Uber's request for a preliminary injunction. No other state's done this yet. Everybody said it wouldn't happen here. We wouldn't get this far. They'd fold. The judge would give. Now, conclusion. Uber's motion for a preliminary injunction is denied because Uber failed to meet its burden of showing likely success on the merits, meaning they couldn't prove in any close enough even realm for the judge to even consider it that they'll win the court case that they're trying to push.
Well, I don't think that they're saying it's not gonna hurt their business is what I believe the judge is getting at. Is because everything they're saying is it's gonna hurt our business, it's gonna hurt our business, and the judge is like, no, it's not.
Right, but I'm saying the conclusion on the motion for the injunction was that, you know, like you didn't show us enough that you're gonna be able to prove these 51 pages. Issuing the injunction would not effectively preserve the status quo, given the state's private enforcement options and Uber's own delay in filing the lawsuit. I love it. Twice it's mentioned. And that's my notes, guys. That's not me making you read the legalese, which I'll put in the notes below, along with a link to Gary's apps too. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty intense to never see it in any court documents in any state, and then to see it twice in a 9-page document responding to their lawsuit. Like, we don't like that you pulled this crap. I love that they just put it out there.
Well, that's how they always do it. They always wait to the last moment before the law is going to take effect. Then they go, wait, we got a problem with this. Like, you didn't have a problem with this 6 months ago.
But don't you find it funny too that, like, because I mean, legally they could have sued on February 1st. They could have dropped their lawsuit.
Here's my question though. Didn't you guys just have a turnover for like your politicians and stuff in November, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they were just waiting to see who got the new seats and stuff to see if they couldn't bribe somebody.
Yeah, but both of these are law now.
Well, I know. I'm just saying maybe that's what they was waiting on.
I mean, at this point, with basically here, I guess here's my summary of it. At this point, if you guys are wondering, what does all this mean? I mean, I've caught it all, but let's put it all together. Is that, look, Uber's in a lot of trouble. They don't like this law more than the laws where they like have to pay $32.50 an active hour in Massachusetts. That they give fake benefits. They can figure that crap out. People don't get as much active time. I don't believe in active time. But here they're asking for something. They're basically saying, open up your black box to the algorithm and let's just show the world everything. And they're like, whoa, dude. No. There's a lot of sketchy stuff in that black box there, buddy. I'm not gonna. And you know, I mean, I'm just impressed with the judge saying it because, like I just said, it is their right to file all the way up till yesterday.
Yeah.
Or even today or tomorrow or the next day.
The thing is, you can file any day you want. You still
right, but for the injunction,
it doesn't matter.
Right, but this
doesn't matter.
It's legal, but this judge points it out though anyway. Even though it's legal, he's like, I don't like that you did this.
Right, and
I really respect that. You know, because that most judges or no judges that we've seen legislation and have done that. They haven't stood up and said, even if they end up having to pass something, they haven't said this. They haven't said, you know, why'd you wait till the 11th hour? That just hasn't been mentioned yet. And I just think it's a sign of maybe what's to come here.
They put in there Uber's own delay. That's what they put, Uber's own delay.
Yeah.
And you know, there's some lawyer on the Uber side going, oh, if we wait till last minute, then we'll get more time. If we wait till last minute, we'll get more time. Whoever that guy was got fired yesterday.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I would just imagine a lot of people got fired. You know, as Stephanie said in the interview, she was very blown away. I always knew they were over there, but she was blown away with when she did get elected, And again, she lost by 3 votes.
3 votes. I seen
3 votes, and she will be running again. I've said many times, I don't agree with Stephanie on everything. She has a lot of views that I don't agree with. However, it's nice to work with people. This is like the cross-party line type thing.
Right.
You know, like on this, Stephanie and I have pretty much seen eye to eye.
Everybody has to have the same views on everything. Not everybody.
No, it's
that's what makes us.
But that's what this country feels like lately.
No. Not everybody has to have the same views. Not everybody.
No, but you don't think that that's how people are these days?
Yeah, I mean that's how people think. Yeah, I mean trust me, I got both sides of people I know.
Yeah.
You don't vote this way, you suck.
Yeah.
You don't vote this
and
way,
if you
suck.
don't, they most of them almost hate you.
Yeah. On both sides. On both sides.
I mean, like here I am, you know, and again, like, you know, Stephanie, I like her as a person, but we don't agree on much. But like,
me and you have said this for years. Like we've been friends for years, and we've always said, look at the policies, not the person.
Yeah.
You know, vote for policies, not the person.
Yeah. Well, I was even mentioning some of her policies I'm not real on board with, but she's passionate about them and she believes them, and I believe in a system that allows her to. If she's elected, man, go ahead.
If she's elected and she can pass them, then you know, that means majority of the people thought the same way she did.
Yeah.
You know?
So that's how the system should work. But again, this is what's happened. I don't know when Uber's case is. I don't know how long, like how far down the road this case will be now, because obviously they're going to be filing other cases. I guarantee it. They're going to be like pissed. And if they do lose their case, if it's in 6-8 months, they're going to appeal it. But nonetheless, as of February 1st, they have to be showing this.
Now, how long do you think it is before they say that? Well, we're going to leave.
I don't know. You and I have like said we want that for a while. Like some state needs to just like literally hold their ground, and go get out. Then.
Yeah, I seriously think some states need to do it to show other states they can do it.
Yeah.
You know, because here's the. It's not that I want drivers to lose their job or lose income or anything.
I live in Colorado, and if that's what it takes, I want it to happen.
But here's what I say: if they pull out, someone else will step in.
Right.
You know, that's
big
how
question becomes: is it Lyft, and they start paying even worse because they're the only game in town?
Now, I think if Uber pulled out, you'd have a whole bunch more or small businesses. Let's say small businesses step up to the plate. And that's what I think for the future. I think that's actually what we need is a whole bunch of small ones, not 2 major ones controlling everything.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You know, and also, you know, I mean, again, guys, if you're confused, please leave comments on this. Oh my God, I want comments. I reply to all of them, and honestly, like I love hearing the difference of opinion. And if you guys see in the comments that somebody else commented, I don't know if anybody ever feels like, oh, I shouldn't respond to somebody else's comment in the comments, but please do. If you don't agree with it, just don't be an ass. Don't attack people. Don't be a jerk. But I like reading even a string when I get to it and seeing that this person said this person said this, it makes me put something together sometimes. So I love all the comments.
And we love to debate with you people too. So.
Yeah. Especially the ones of you that are wrong.
Yeah.
But you guys check out Gary'sApps.com. Really, it's been how many years?
Oh, since I started it late 2015
with FlexAlert.
No, Maxymo.
Okay.
Maxymo,
yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, you know, there's FlexAlert is to grab. Is it batches?
No, FlexAlert. FlexAlert is.
I just don't know if they're called batches. Are they called?
Well, they're called blocks. It's for Amazon Flex drivers. It's not so it just can grab them for you, but it can alert you and show you history when they drop, things like that.
Right, but it also can it grab them though? Yeah.
So, well, some of them, if they're reserved ones, and stuff like that. Yes.
Yeah. So, but nonetheless, that one's free. That's a freebie. So if you're doing Flex, try it out. And then you got Yak, which is going to become my new favorite. That's just you get to complain about shit, guys. So if you love complaining, which I know all of you do,
I say Yak is Google reviews, but for customers. That's what I always call it, because Google no longer lets you go on there and flag a customer's house, saying that they're a tip baiter or they got dogs or whatever it may be. And so Yak allows you to do that. you can complain, hey, these people tip baited me. I took a $60 order and they took out $40 back. Well, then that means that if I'm at Walmart Spark picking that stuff up, I'm unassigning that order because I ain't gonna get tip baited.
No, I'm going to be honest. I haven't even asked Gary this, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to know the answer. I don't think there's a lot of like, you can't do this on Yak and that. I'm sure there's some like you can't like hate on people or religions, but I would assume one thing guys do not do, because it's talked about all the time, is do not flag houses as illegals or anything like that. That's,
yeah, I mean,
that is
there's a reporting system on there. If someone puts a review and other people don't like it, they can report the comment, and believe it or not, it's automatically taken down after one report, so I can review them because I don't want that type of stuff. But I mean,
if you leave a review and it wasn't bad and you see it gone, it's somebody flagged you maybe for no reason.
They won't see it gone.
Gary will review it. He'll put it back.
No, people don't see when it's gone. Only I see if it's gone.
Oh, okay.
like if you
my point is
you report something, you won't see it's gone. I'll see it's gone. But yeah, it's a very quick turnaround. It's all automated for the most part. It's a free app. I don't charge for it. I don't plan on charging for it. There's a few ads in it, but nothing crazy. Nothing pops up. And I mean, you can put in personal notes in there too. So like me and my wife, we use it for like gate codes and stuff. We share gate codes because we're husband and wife, but those are only shown for me and her. So like when you put a gate code in there, it's not shown through everybody for, of course, security and privacy of the customer.
Right. So there's that. And then, then we have Gig Wars Official. I don't know if they have do they have a website too?
Yeah, I believe it's Gig Wars. I don't know. Gary'sApps.com.
Regardless, just go to Gary. If there is a website, it's tied up.
It's GigWarsOfficial.com is what it is.
So, but go to Gary's Apps. You can read about the app first in case you're not familiar. But then I'm kind of trying to give a little plug to Red too, because she does a good job over there. It's fun. It's another hangout. It's live. But then you have your two big ones, and I'm going to say DUH first, because to me, I know you have more users on it, but I like Maxymo. It's just, that's why I think you should move DUH into it, because the DoorDash days of like a frenzy of,
it would make my job easier if I would move it over there, because then I would only have to focus on that app. But at the same time, it's a lot of programming and then a lot of getting people to switch over to the other app. Because believe it or not, there's people that say, hey, I like DUH, I don't like Maxymo. I like Maxymo, I don't like.
Well, actually,
and they're really similar.
I get it, and it probably makes no sense for you to merge them, because, there are people who just do DoorDash. I know most of us multi-app and whatnot, but there are people who just do DoorDash.
Right. And if I get to the point to where, I do track, how many people have both installed. So if I get to a majority that they both have both of them installed, I might do that, because it would simplify things for me, especially like billing and taxes and stuff. So, but it's just right now, they're too far apart on how much people have.
Yeah. And again, then there's Maxymo guys, Uber Eats, Grubhub.
Yep. Grubhub.
And
Just Eats, Skip the Dishes.
Now he's talking about other country stuff, guys. If you're in America, you're going, what do I need to look these apps up? You don't.
No, okay. It's got all the major ones for on demand for, and I actually put in a Curry feature to it as well. It doesn't do any auto accepting, but it does show you the breakdown for every trip for Curry. Instacart, it does the same thing. It'll show you the breakdown. It does not auto accept or anything, but it shows you the breakdown and things like that to help you decide quicker, because I know people can't do math real quick all the time while they're driving. And of course, Australia apps, there's some over there and some in Canada as well, and then some from the UK.
Yeah, and and the main thing, guys, too, is that these, again, there's Gary's always said thousands of filters in there. You guys can go nuts. You could lose days trying to really tweak it out, but you could also just start simply with some simple stuff. But most of all, and I know that can help your earnings, and that's why I was saying it, but most of all, it's a safety app. rideshare drivers should have more time to pick a ride than a delivery driver. And you're given seconds in the middle of an intersection and boom, you're in an accident.
I think Uber's ping, depending on the market, is between 7 and 11 seconds for rideshare.
Is it okay? Yeah. That's longer than it used to be.
It used to be 4 to 7.
Yeah, and it used to blink at you, so like it wanted to give you a seizure or something.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, they're slowly increasing it, but that's still not enough time. I mean, not to look at all the factors you need to look at. That's why I say I got that one user. He sets his filters, and then he looks for green or red. Green, he means accept. Red means decline. So that's simple for him.
So I'm going to leave you guys with one last question. Why wouldn't Uber and all these companies allow this in their apps? Well, we just described it for Gary's apps, because they talk about data. They have to send it out to so many people, and people don't accept this, that. If you can set, I don't take less than I only want to see $1 a mile, $2 a mile, whatever you want. That is going to limit so much. I mean, Uber would be stupid to not put this in. It's like the transparency. I don't think they'll lose on it. But I'll leave it at that. Check out Gary'sApps.com. And Gary, thank you for joining. It's always fun, man.
Always fun. We always go over on time whenever I'm on here. Always.
I know. But I do okay, because I do an hour, and an hour 15 is my hard cut on this. So we're good. We did it.
Just so everybody knows, we're at hour 16 and 25 seconds.
Which means I'm an hour and 20 or a minute and 25 seconds over the hard ceiling. So anyway, you guys, let's add another 30 seconds to it. Have a good day.
She was just a baby. Hey, no